What if society isn't broken by accident, but by design? What if war, division and manipulation aren't side effects, but strategies? And what if our way out is not to resist harder, but to remember deeper? Welcome to Tribe Radio, where the system ends and your sovereignty begins. Today I'm joined by Ruben for a second time, a voice of grounded rebellion, vision and restoration. He doesn't just speak about the old world's collapse, he's helping to build the new one, rooted in honor, truth and love. This episode is a compass out of the cult of control and toward a culture of conscience. It's for the awakened, the builders, the healers and those who refuse to forget who we are. Ruben, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me again.
Yeah, no problem, brother. You are home here.
Yep.
And I feel home with you, so yeah. I have a list that we can go through today, and with 5 chapters. So let's just start and just dive in.
Start with number 1.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
Part 1, awakening, seeing through the lie. The first sign of awakening is a quiet sense that something doesn't belong. Ruben, can you take us back to the moment you realized this world runs on illusion? What was the crack in the veil for you?
Yeah, this world being the system, then I imagine, yeah, the illusion. Well, for me, I think we spoke about this in the last podcast as well. It was just the realization that there is an anti-life at work, and a force that is anti-life, which is also now how I define evil, which is literally the word live in reverse. So, which makes complete sense because all evil ultimately comes from ignorance. So the opposite of self-realization. For me, that was things like pollution, like I've mentioned in the last episode, the last podcast. The air is polluted, the animals are dying out, yet the behavior of driving a car that pollutes the air, or producing plastic, buying plastic that pollutes with microplastics our water, our air, even when they burn it, it becomes nanoparticles that spread through the sky and become invisible to measure. So it's like a invisible dumping ground. It just magically disappears, but of course it doesn't, and it massively manipulates the hormone system of animals and humans. So these kind of facts, the simplest one was when I was 4, as I mentioned. I realized, like, hey, I can't hold my breath that long, you know, this is very important. This is like priority number 1 for us to be able to breathe. So sensible beings would see the clean, pristine air and like maybe aromas from a healthy ecosystem and plants, like that we absorb then in micro doses, you know, like that kind of alignment to a healthy nature. We would see that as sacred. Nothing could be an excuse to tamper with that. So that simple realization of like, oh, it's normalized to pollute. The adults are crazy. Why are the adults crazy? Because they are taught this norm of crazy being, you know, crazy patterns of being, of habits. Yeah. Okay.
I find it interesting how you look at the world through the eyes of maybe still a child.
In a way, yeah, I guess.
Very relatable for me. What do you believe is the core illness of our modern world? Is it political, spiritual or moral?
Political, spiritual or moral? I would say in essence it's spiritual, because it's the lack of self-realization, and the self in that is the inner oneness. So the Holy Spirit, so to say, a wholeness, the perception, which I find an interchangeable word with spirit, of wholeness, of like us being part of a natural living whole. So holistic perception, and then follows the fall of morality, because if we do not acknowledge that, we see ourselves as separate from the other and from nature, and then we start to be afraid, because anything can happen, right? The other is separate from you, is a completely different reality and world. So then we start to strive for control, and we start to be prioritize the individual self, or maybe the group of our kind, in whatever way, with a materialistic focus.
The tribe or the community?
The tribe, yeah. In a way it's good to prioritize the tribe, but not from a perspective of being parasitic on other tribes or being parasitic on others, because in essence we are all one, we are connected.
Being dependent on but in
well,
some
when
way
that connection is lost, then we become hostile in a way to so the morality falls. We prioritize ourselves, our limited selves, at the costs of our environment. So the fall of morality results from the lack of spirituality. And then comes politics, because politics basically is again like a divide of multiple parties that are like discussing things that people then can give their vote to, or like as we know democracy, it's a system that is opposed to freedom in that sense, and to morality and to spirituality, because it's a battleground of discussion, instead of a space where people acknowledge the same problem and the same needs also for all people. So not a majority that overrules a minority with their short-sightedness, and the majority will always be less educated and more gullible than the minority. So the wise men of this world will never form a majority in a voting system, so it doesn't work.
Fortunately not, no.
Yeah, so politics as we know it results from the fall in morality, which results from the lack of self-realization. So I see it as it's downstream of spiritual realization. Yeah. And the fall and the lack of culture, lack of shared stories and traditions.
Yeah, and don't you think that the political tool is actually a tool
to fix things, or to
well, it's more like a question towards you. Don't you see it as a tool, and how do they use that tool?
Okay, yeah, yes, I see it as a puppet show of supposed representatives of the people, of different streams that, are not sprouting from a rooted community, a rooted group of people that are rooted in ancestral wisdom and a certain ecosystem and natural system that over time has developed their ways to stay strong, healthy and happy. So it's of course derives from the Romans in our before that we had circles of wise men deciding, like all native people around the world had, and then these massive systems come, and this political puppet show is mainly, I believe, what I see in that, I wouldn't even call it believing, but the logic that I see at work there is the illusion of freedom, to give people the illusion of freedom.
Yeah, that's something that also lived right now in my head.
Because they can vote, and
exactly.
then they get rid of their responsibility. And this is of course a complete illusion, because in reality the responsibility is in our own words and actions in our direct environment. So it's you can't get rid of that responsibility. It just means that we're practicing some form of idol worship.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
In your view, why is love dangerous to the system, and why is honor so rare in today's culture?
Well, love is the driving force of our actions, and real love, I would say, is directly connected and inseparable from truth. And it's again the truth, the living truth of our being. So once we realize the inner oneness, I recognize the oneness in me, I will recognize the oneness in you, and from that comes transparency between us, because I want to open to myself, and you're the reflection of me. And this field of consciousness that then streams, that's what I call love, because we are in essence that living love. And it's the living truth of the dream of love, as I call it, because the material world ultimately, as most people by now know, at least most of your viewers I hope know, is mostly nothing, right? The more we zoom in on the atom, the less it is. So it's a field, an electromagnetic field of consciousness that holds things together. And what are those things even? You know, the more we investigate, the less tangible stuff is left. So love is the unfolding, the pure unfolding of that blueprint that we are, through transparency, through openness. And if the anti-life force, you know, the ignorance embodied, evil, wants to manipulate, there's always a divide and conquer strategy, a divide and rule at work. And people who realize this, what I just said, they can't really be divided. So they want to normalize things like violence, hatred, fear, because they're the opposite of the living truth of love ultimately. And they separate. And then people don't communicate openly anymore because they become afraid of each other. They become, violence is an option. You see now violence is normalized through MMA and, you know, these heavy fighting events, and it's getting more and more uncivilized. Before, sportsmanship was a value and was a sign of strength, to control emotions, to not project on the other, to step into the ring. It's an agreement, you know, it's a gentleman's agreement. You step into the ring, within the rules you engage, and there's a winner, there's a loser, and then the winner bows to the loser, basically, for, you know, thanking him for this good sport, for being a good sport, for having a good game. And now what is normalized is that they're making everything personal, you know, like jealous women, or like it's not masculine in my eyes anyway. It's not strong. It's total weakness not to be in control of your own emotion in that sense, and to go towards projection and things like sucker punching each other, you know, like at the weigh-ins, is being hyped up and talking talking shit about each other, and, you know, like,
yeah, just another dividing strategy, of course.
Exactly, they're cultivating through the media. Those controllers are cultivating the image of masculinity as being like the king of the monkey rock, you know, like an ape, like a hostile kind of aggressive figure.
Yeah, being very primitive is masculinity. Yeah, well, at least that's how they picture it for people.
Yeah, that's the image they are imprinting in our young men, in order for them to start like behaving in a way that makes it impossible to unite with other men, because it becomes about competition and hostility, because that's strong. But in reality, it's a weak, insecure, fearful being that acts like that.
Yeah.
So it breaks the unity that is our real strength. And from that also comes the lack of honor, because it becomes, you know, like, honor is about honesty. It's again about this transparency, to open up, to really be fair. Also, when you feel emotion, you can be honest about that. You know, you can say like, okay, I'm starting to feel pissed off with you, you know, because this what you're doing is not okay. But especially in fighting sports, it's ridiculous to do anything, because you're going to face them in the ring anyway. It's just a sign of weakness.
And what is honor for you?
Honesty. It's now the word honor has been linked, also because certain cultures that talk a lot about honor are very much in this kind of violent divide between men. So there's a normalization of the word honor as being wrath or vengeance. Like, oh, he insulted me. Like, you know, this is a very egocentric and materialistic and non-spiritual thing, like to be offended. Spiritually aware people are not offended.
Sacrificing yourself for the greater good, for example, go fight in Ukraine, then you're an honorous man.
That's also there, making use of the sense of real honor, I would say, that is in people, but then making use of the naivety of young people, that they assume that the narrative they are being told is the truth. So they think that when they go there to fight, that they are fighting evil, but in reality they might be evil.
Helping evil, yeah.
They are
evil.
Absolutely, the hand of evil, like, and it's the same with sending the guns, but this is a different topic. But honor, for me, is honesty, transparency, authenticity, to have the courage that is related to the heart, obviously the French word cœur, so to be transparent and meet each other in openness, and be honest about what you see, what you feel, not try to manipulate the other, because there is no other. In that sense, there is no benefit.
That's the transparency what you just mentioned.
Yeah, that is the transparency that is absolutely needed for us to heal ourselves and this world. And so that's the honor that keeps us aligned to the eternal destination of paradise on earth.
Yeah. In our last episode, you mentioned a little bit about the things you are doing, the projects that you are building, sort of the new world that you are designing for others and for yourself. Are you sure that what you're building isn't just a nicer version of the same structure with new languages but old dynamics underneath?
Yeah. I am pretty certain, even though that might sound like alarm bells ringing, because usually when one individual is certain and would act to be some kind of leader, which I'm not, maybe by example, okay, I can get into that, but the core principle of what we're building, and I say we because that's key, even though it's my vision, it's not something I made up, it's something I discovered. It's the workings of this world, and it has been like this forever, way, way, way before this little Ruben came into the world, or Robin, or whomever, So there's principles at work, and we, as I mentioned also in the last podcast about understanding, we need to understand those principles, and we do stand under them, because as an individual, this is where we belong. And the narrative is about the circle. So it's the round table. It's King Arthur and the knights in the mythology, as opposed to the dark wizard at the top, who is like ruling through fear. And it's like one character at the top that is dominating the others. And this is the whole key, because if someone isolates themselves and believes that he is what he thinks he is, like the great leader or whatever, and starts to identify too much with that image and the image of what he thinks the others are and the world, then he's not being. Then he believes that he is what he thinks he is. So he's captured in this image in the head. This is what the spiritual teachers speak about. Yeah. And that's the real belief system trap, because then he identifies, I'm the big leader, I'm the great leader, how dare you offend me, off with his head, in this group, they're in the way, and that. But in reality, when we step into that circle and we realize the oneness within, and that oneness is within each and every one of us, then we open up to the reflection. And we can see in that reflection of people, we can recognize ourselves.
Yeah, I understand what you mean right now. Just for the transparency, I joined you on this journey as well recently. I even did a hot seat call, that's how you call it, where I got 2 hours with men around me, where I could share my story, where you can dive deep into the deepest traumas, etc. I experienced that as something very intimate, even a bit scary at times, because you really have to let go of that ego that you're talking about, and that's something I find beautiful, because sometimes we're not conscious of our ego, And within your circle, I became conscious of my ego, of egos of others, and we also make each other, hoe zeg je dat?
Accountable.
Accountable.
Keep each other accountable.
Exactly. That's it. And that's a sort of a feeling that something is cleaning you from the inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what some would call the Holy Spirit at work. You know, it's like there's a belief system of the separated self, which we call the ego. Mm-hmm. And it's not like the ego is bad, but that belief system puts the ego at the center. And then things go wrong, because then at the center is the oneness, not the ego. The ego is underneath that. And if we don't do that, then we get this kind of God syndrome. We think that we are special in that sense. Yeah. And everyone is unique. Everyone is special in that sense, but you're not special in the sense of that you're above the circle.
Yeah.
Even though your role might be a big role and you might reach millions of people and you might inspire even more, you know.
Yeah.
You're still, you know, you might have eaten that morning that you got this beautiful insight. You might have eaten this meal prepared by a super conscious cook who was just, you know, putting all his love in there, and therefore, you know, you were in such a good spirit and something clicked, you know. Mm-hmm. We don't know what influences worked on us that made us who we are. That's why things like patents are also insane, you know, like no one came to something all by themselves. We're constantly influenced. So that's what that is about. It's about opening up and realizing who we truly are. Yeah. And we need each other for that.
Yeah. Beautiful. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch and do nothing. Part 2. Deprogramming. The cult we call culture. Not all prisons have bars. Some have school bells and credit scores. In what ways do you see our current culture behaving like a cult? And what are the beliefs we are forced to swallow just to survive?
Big question. I would say for me the main difference between culture, which I see as shared stories and shared traditions that cultivate a certain norm of relating to each other, to reality, to ourselves. And a cult I would see as that same thing, yet a sick version where certain beliefs are installed through methods of brainwash, I would say. So free will is put to the background, so it's not like in a healthy culture I would see like the folk songs with wisdom in it, and the children want to join around the fire to sing the folk songs. And in a cult you would have, for example, rooms with little chairs and tables and maybe some kind of screen, and you put all the kids in there and you just have an authoritarian figure, an authority that is telling the truth, and they just need to regurgitate in order to install through repetition this belief in them, this belief system. And those beliefs are things like points, right? We get validated by this external authority to do well, to regurgitate well what they tell us is the truth, or what they tell us is something we need to know. And then we get validated by this external authority. So you're not a participant in that. You're a submissive creature that needs to live up to a kind of image that is created for you. And you're rewarded or punished with a high grade or a low grade. And later this goes straight into money. And of course video games play into this with points. And it's constantly that kind of striving to become something you're not. And if you want to leave the cult, you're ridiculed, or worse, in some cases killed. You know, in some religions, for example, you can't leave being killed.
Definitely.
So these belief systems that function like that through this authority, and usually through media in between what they call authority experts and those people that are being, through repetition, programmed with certain beliefs. Money is one of them, the belief in money as a foundation for stability, wealth, all these things, instead of going directly to nature and learning how to grow your own food, build your own house, like real life skills. They're taken away. That's what schools should teach in a healthy culture. So the power is with the people. But now we are taught pointless things in order to deserve those credits, which are all fully controlled by people who make those credits, create them out of nothing. Like a magical control tool. So that's just one example, because I would say another big program is to teach us through lots of exposure to violence and also nature being violent, that our nature is to be violent, that our nature is evil, that is our real way of being, and that again links back to that ape man image of like the alpha male, which they discovered anyway. Like with the wolves, they had the wrong wolf that they thought was the alpha male. Actually, the alpha male was another wolf. It wasn't the front one, the aggressive dominant one. It was more like a bit older one watching, So there's a very symbolic mistake that had been made there anyway. But that links back to that, this kind of normalization of aggression and violence, which kills the conversation. Like, you entered in the circle, you entered something I call the realm of reason. And that's where reason rules. And emotions can come to the surface, but they are never the foundation of an argument. They are just coming up in order to be exposed, and they can always be, as long as we don't bring any kind of anger to the domain of deeds, where we start punching or even using our words in a violent way. I mean, that's of course still within the realm of reason. That's where you see the boundaries, because then we can be corrected. Oh, whoa, now you're making it personal. This is not personal. Nothing is personal in that sense. There's a pattern at work. We're hunting for these trolls in the shadow. We're hunting for these assumptions, for these beliefs, for these these bottled up emotions from the past, in order to give them a safe space to be released. But if we don't trust each other, if we're in a space where we believe that any moment it can turn violent, we're not gonna open up. Spaces need to be created.
Wow. Yeah. So, as I translate it, is the lack of self-knowledge keeps control over the human being.
Yeah, by the alter ego, the shadow itself, ignorance itself. Those who think they rule this world through their banks and through their systems don't rule this world, because they themselves have been possessed by fear.
Yeah, are being manipulated by that world.
There's the deep state, right?
Yeah.
As I say, and then there's the deeper state of being. So deeper than the lie is the truth of the oneness. So they will be exposed. They will be exposed. There's nothing that can stop
They are currently being exposed every day.
They are being exposed, yeah. But also they themselves, and their own children will start to wake up. So it's not true what they have believed. It's only a phase of like a kind of cocoon in which pressure is put on humanity in order to... We can't control what's happening outside because they control everything. So then you go to where you can control it. First you go inside and you realize this oneness, then you lose the fear, then you just start doing your own thing. No matter what their rules say, you start to obey the real law. The laws of the order of nature, the laws of spirituality, cause and effect.
Yeah.
And this is what will engulf this world really rapidly now.
That goes very well in alignment with the next question. How do you believe media, education and identity politics are used to disconnect us from source?
Well, any kind of media, if we give it belief as if it is a source, is manipulating us already. Because be it a priest, be it a screen, an expert, as soon as we give them the power, the belief to know better than us, then they are in between us and the truth. They are in between us and source. They are in between us, and so we try to go outside to get this information from this medium, but actually it's inside. So it stands in between us. Money is a medium as well. Like I said, before we just made the things ourselves directly from nature. You would learn life skills. If you can't, you maybe have a friend who makes it, and you give him what you make, he gives you what he makes.
Bartering.
You have everything, not even bartering, just sharing. If I would make boots, I go hunting, I shoot a deer with my bow that I made, and or maybe my friend makes them, but yeah, he makes like hundreds of bows in his life because he loves bow making and he's really good at it. So one he gives to me, his friend. And then I shoot a deer and I make boots out of that. But I don't make one pair of boots. I make many pairs of boots for my wife, for my children, for my friends. And this is what everyone does. If there is a healthy local community where love rules.
Yeah, for the common purpose.
Yeah, money was not necessary, is not necessary still, even if we would realize it, en masse, of course. But this can start small, this kind of life skills where we make things and we just give to each other goes way further than what people realize. And then money becomes a thing again. What is money? I mean, right now it's nothing, it's just a belief. And it's just made by people who use that belief. And because we can't do shit in general, life skill wise, we need that money to get our food, to transport ourselves.
Within that system, yeah.
Within that system, yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. But it's a big step for most people to go to Siberia, for example, or, middle of nowhere.
Of course.
Yeah, what do? You need some kind of knowledge. You need some kind of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was more, you said education and...
Yeah, so how do you believe media, education and identity politics are used to disconnect us from source? So identity politics could be the whole LGBTQ label factory.
Yeah, this is such a... I always compare it to farmers who because it's again these people are turned into a weapon, like sand in the radar work, kind of like they use them to polarize.
Noise.
Yeah, noise, like that. So they just, through repetition, they just installed a certain belief, like a boy can become a girl. It's of course not true for anyone that realizes that a boy is a boy will become a man when he grows up, a girl is a girl will become a woman when they grow up. Everyone knows what a boy and a girl are. If you say you don't know, you're not honest. You're just not honest. There's no honor there, there's no authenticity, because we do know. This is why they are hammering, I am a woman. A woman would never say that. Because a woman is a woman. Everyone can see that. So there's no reality to it, but it's comparable to a farmer that has a field. He wants broccoli, for example. So he's considering all other plants that come there weeds. So he's weeding them out and he sticks to the broccoli. But behind that is a belief system. He wants the broccoli because he wants to make money, and that's how he knows how to make money, basically. That's usually the case. But nature has a plan as well. And in reality, that plan that nature has is superior to the farmer's plan. So these weeds come to refertilize the soil, to bring back a healthy ecosystem. So there's two plans that are colliding. And instead of working with nature as they would do in permaculture, these farmers, mainstream farmers, are working against that force of nature. So it's a constant battle. And it creates toxic, weak food. It's a dead end in the end. And the transgenderism can be seen in the same way. There's a body that has a plan of its own, and it's given to us. I have nothing to say over the fact that I'm a man. I do think my soul agrees to that. I feel very confident, happy, and very at home in my body in that sense. But if you don't, then who's right? The concept that is completely influenced by stories all the time, by a narrative that's given, repetitive through all these different channels, the illusion of choice, but because in fact they're all coming from the same source, but it's the illusion of choice. Or the body, who's right? The concept or the body? You can't change your body. You could start injecting hormones and things like that, but it's not gonna go well with that soil underneath. It's the same as putting artificial fertilizer on the land.
GMOs, yeah.
Yeah, it's destructive. It's the same thing. We're going against the given, against our nature. We should surrender to the nature and study the nature as our teacher, because that's our given. Yeah. Our own bodies are nature. We can't ever change the rules of nature. There are laws, there's an order to it. The more we align our culture, our shared stories and tradition to it, the more healthy, happy, beautiful and strong we become. It's very simple in essence.
Yeah, we are in some sense holy. And you said last time, holy actually means wholeness.
Yeah.
So people who think they're something else than what they are not whole in some sense.
Yeah, they doubt their own nature. Therefore, they believe that artificial means can improve on their nature. It's the same with pharmaceuticals. It's the same with all these things. Like GMO is, of course, a great example. There is no improving on nature. The concept they have is flawed. They're working towards a purpose that is not the purpose that is aligned to our nature. Therefore, they think they can improve because they want bigger tomatoes, or they want to make more money. Yeah. So again, it's rooted in that system. So the way our money system and the dependence on that medium, and this is also, like I said before, what our education plays into, points, validation, not real life skills, dependence on this point system. That's what it all plays into.
Yeah.
So it works together as one machine. Money, media, military. That's the 3 M's.
Yeah, and our children are shaped by the same system. So how do we protect them while healing ourselves?
Yeah, here we come to community. First of all, I would say, to empower people, and also this is the truth. Parents are the biggest influences on the children. When they're born, like there's 2 embodied gods in the eyes of every child, and that's mama and papa, like mommy and daddy that's it, that's where they are. And of course mommy first, because they literally come out of the body and do not realize that they're separate from it until they're like 4 months or something, or 3 months. So it's and that's an intense experience straight away. Then they become very clingy because they realize, like, oh, holy fuck, I've got a material body, like this perception of this little God particle, can be separated physically from mommy.
I have to drive my own car. Yeah.
Well, they become like, they need some comfort, because it's an intense moment of realizing individuality. And then starts their path straight away, because once they realize that, they become super ego-centered for a bit, because then they need to discover the boundaries. So if they get sick examples there, like normalized violence or pornography, like sex disconnected from love, like this kind of thing. And anyway, a child in a natural situation wouldn't ever encounter sex unless he walks in onto his parents, and it would be a very different kind of thing than what's happening now. So that doesn't play a role in their little minds, they're focused on love and on building a life, building a house, learning these life skills, telepathic communication with their animals, their horse, whatever, these kind of like real life things was the school in a distant past. And we're going there again, ultimately, because that's just how humans are wired. This is what our whole energetic system thrives on. So there's a blueprint to the way we live. And now, to protect our children, community is what we need to realize. In our own surroundings, like, don't expose our children to these nonsense narratives. Like, ultimately, don't send them to these brainwash facilities, like where, well, our stepdaughter comes home with songs that I don't think she should be singing. Like these pop songs have very destructive and sexually charged lyrics that bring her attention to things that a 6-year-old should just not be busy with, and distracts them from what they should be busy with. And because melodies stick to our brain, and you know all the songs when you were a kid and you see cartoons, I remember the songs from the cartoons I saw like 38 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, I had this like with the gummy bears the other day. Someone was playing a little fragment of 2 seconds on the guitar,
And
we had to guess what songs it was. I recognized the gummy bears. I didn't think about that stuff for at least 30 years. Instantly I recognized it. So what if we have, as any healthy culture had, folk songs like mantras, you know, that program us with healthy spells, and then the melody sticks it to our brain, the words come back through repetition, but we sing it together, real life. The children join in. That's what we do. That's our celebrations. And like that, you bring this wisdom to them, this ancestral wisdom, and that forms a never-ending chain where people can live aligned to this force of nature, to nature itself, to the order of nature, to the law of cause and effect, and to the inner oneness, because of course you don't ignore the spiritual aspect of our immortal essence. That's what this is made for. This is what this memory is made for. We shouldn't just put these things into young kids randomly. There is a possibility to create these strong imprints that will overrule, form a kind of firewall against this evil system that wants to program them with things that make them addicted to external validation, authority, drugs, and puts them into their center, makes them realize themselves. Ideally, we need each other, community, but it can be just some people in your surroundings that are awake, that also have children. You can homeschool together, join an app, meet up with other people, go to conscious festivals and retreats, develop yourself. It will grow, 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 but we will need each other. We will need the circle.
Yeah.
And then they taste this authentic connection, and it will become very clear to the children what is good and what works and what doesn't. But if they have nothing to compare with, if they don't stand for something, they will fall for anything. So that's what we need to create together.
Beautiful. He who controls the youth controls the future. What do you think about that? That was Adolf Hitler who said that.
Yeah, that's completely true, because the youth is the future. It's very simple. I call it raising the future. That's what we're doing. That's what parents are busy with. They're raising the future. And raising, hopefully, also as in the frequency, raising the energy, raising happiness, health, strength, beauty. Of course, this goes by example and through the things I just mentioned. And another thing I would say about that quote is that that's also where I think where Adolf went wrong, because it shouldn't ever be a he or a she. It should always be a we in the form of a cultural narrative that stands above every individual and every man and woman, every individual. So the stories, our ancestral mythology, our stories like Sleeping Beauty, King Arthur, you know, the Snow White about the 7 chakras and you know, the light that awakens them. These kind of stories, of course, with the meaning intact, should always be the guiding principles, like holidays, like certain festivities the year through, sports, games, arts, crafts, all aligned to that culture to create this beautiful architecture with the symbology of our own culture, and also free from foreign clutter, I would say, because we're language patterns, we're living language. So the buildings we build, the pattern we build them in, the clothes we wear, it's all ventilating this kind of culture. The recipes we have should be aligned to the ecosystem, to the season, to the ultimate nourishment of our body, and like that we can weave a spell of meaning, of affirmation through these shared stories and traditions that we bring to the earth through the actual experience in these traditions and is aligned to the earth. So we form the bridge between this consciousness, the heavens, the meaning, and the actual physical reality. And like that we embody eternity. Yeah.
Part 3. Healing. Returning to love and sovereignty. What you don't heal, you will hand down. Ruben, what does healing really mean to you? Not as a trend, but as a deep alchemical process.
To me, I would compare it to this pyramid lack of self-realization, because in the pyramid the authority would be the top, and it's kind of open and exposed. So the capstone is kind of missing, basically. It's leaking. It's like, oh, that's where God is, but God becomes this vague external entity, or the law, or something outside of yourself. And the real transformation is to realize that that power is within ourselves, and that process requires, from pyramid to circle, within the middle the oneness, requires the acceptance of full responsibility as well. So it's a caterpillar to butterfly process. It's a cocoon pressure. It's not easy healing. And again, the word healing links to becoming whole. We're the hill in Dutch, right?
Yeah,
so it's like becoming whole, which is again the same as holy. You're not leaking anymore. There's no more pointing finger, because 3 fingers are pointing back. So any moment we are triggered, we realize, like, why is this reflection in my world? Why is this my reality right now? Being in the world, as Jesus Christ supposedly said. That's what we need to do. So once we are healed, we see the perfection of the law of attraction in our own world. And there can still be things, dark things, there can still be these kind of reflections, but then we will accept our responsibility and we will speak up, because we're part of the dream. We're not only the oneness in the center, we are also fulfilling our role in this dream play. So that's the process of healing and getting rid of all clutter. So poison in your body, right? The synthetic chemicals, but also stress that comes from fear and from these beliefs that we are, these evil beings, and we are limited, and we're being, we're dying, and and it's challenging. It's also challenging for me still.
And the outside world is also stressful,
Yeah, there's all this stuff happening. Yeah, so, and that matters. But not to give it more attention than needed. And where there's a will, there's a way. Like, do your best and God does the rest, right? That's what they say.
Yeah.
And God then is this force, this inner power, this creative power, this oneness, this mystery at our core, which is a total mystery, and no one will ever explain it. That's where life started, and what life in essence is. We can word it, we can give it a place in this beautiful, holy pattern, but what it really is, we can only experience. And once we realize that fully and embody that fully and live aligned to its creation, we heal. No disease will be in this paradise to come. This is totally clear. Cancer is not a natural thing. It doesn't come out of mistakes in the DNA. There are no mistakes in our DNA. There are no mistakes in our being. Mistakes are all created over time by our own false belief systems and our own habitual patterns coming from that.
Okay. Now I have another question for you. How can we embody love without being naive to evil?
Yeah, that's again the link truth. One of the things I mention often, and before I did it also to get conversation going, a bit like triggering. I said when they say love is the only truth, I say truth is the only love. They're the same thing in essence. The living truth of love, the dream of the living truth of love, that's what we are living if we are aligned to this blueprint as a collective, then we're in paradise. So the danger would be to forget about evil, to forget altogether. And this is why we need stories about good and evil. We need the stories about the witch, we need Sleeping Beauty, we need these things to remember what that is. And during childhood, during the raising of the future and the path of initiations we have to provide as a culture, there must be this realization of these behavioral patterns. So also children need to get enough space to make mistakes, enough freedom to get into a fight, to steal, to do all these things. We don't approve of it, but they need to experience making mistakes, and then they need to come together in a circle provided by the elders, by, depending on how far out of balance they get, of course. If they get really far, I guess it is the elders and not their parents anymore, And they get stories, they get told stories, they're put in the center of the circle, and we sing for them. We sing the songs that carry the logic, the reason, the spells of rhyme and reason that reset their brain again to be aligned. But this takes eternal vigilance, and not vigilance in a cramped up way. But we need to protect the cultural narrative, the mythology, the circle structure of our community. Never can we allow money to come in between us and our life skills and nature again. Never can we allow things like law and passports to bring strangers that are not aligned to this cultural narrative or the spiritual awareness into our communities in mass numbers that will, form clutter. Yeah. Love is an exception. Love can always bring people into a community. Like if someone from the community is in love with someone else, then you become part of our community if you choose so. Or the other one goes to the other community and becomes part of that if he or she chooses so. But there is a home. There is a home. There is an ecosystem. There is a spirit that lives there. And that needs to be protected by beauty. A beautiful cultural narrative with beautiful songs, with an attractive culture that the young ones want to be part of above anything and everything. So we don't have to force them by fear and punishment. That doesn't work. Then they will just learn that they need to be stronger and more violent and aggressive. And they will start to go into the pyramid of domination hierarchies. So they switch to the wrong side.
Yeah.
They need to be attracted by inspiration from authentic expression, because that's what inspires people. In song, in dance, in anything. It's always authentic expression that inspires young people most. They can feel it. So we just need a healthy culture that they feel attracted to, that they feel a sense of belonging to. And if they feel that sense of belonging through the circles, they will want to contribute. And their will is aligned to the shared purpose. The higher purpose of cultivating these spaces of love and truth.
Yeah, and what comes into mind is being grounded as well, because if when I look around and we see community groups of people who are awakened, they are very into in an energy of peace and love. But for me, that's sort of putting your head in the sand and not wanting to see that there is indeed evil in this world. How do you see that?
This is like the Buddhists say, right? The pleasure chase, the avoidance of pain, the avoidance of the discomfort of waking up, like in the Matrix movie. They wake up in this world, and the world is not beautiful that they wake up in. There's a lot of bad shit, automatic patterns represented by machines in that world that leech in a parasitic way upon the natural world. So it's painful to acknowledge that, as you experienced also in your own hot seat call. Like, there's a lot of pain behind that, and we're sharing this collective pain of this separateness that has suffered. You know, this part of us that was isolated, that just suffered. And these places, usually it's people that want to flee the system, which is completely understandable. The first step is that they learn how to connect from their personal feelings. So this is what you see happening everywhere, but it's all still about the ego, right? It's about, like, I feel this and I want to share it, and you receive me, thank you so much, you know, and now I'm going to receive you and do the same for you, but they stick to this kind of like false narrative where they always mention my truth and your truth, and as if they are separate things. And I get what, in essence, like, your life experience isn't the same as my life experience, but what is the same is a kind of realization pattern in your life and in everyone's life, which is the hero's journey, this raising the future, this path of initiation. It's there anyway, also when the space is not kept. Then it just becomes a lot more rough and not held, and people die and wars and, you know, shit happens. So we need to keep that space.
Our purpose brought us together, brother. So that's also something beautiful, you know. It's
but to finish this up, like, the spaces are now prepared for the next phase of awakening, which is the narrative, the mythology, the mythological story that will come back, where we start realizing that we need to pull the sword of reason and the shield of honesty, and we need to chop away with honest reasoning these false beliefs in order to awaken the sleeping beauty at the center and receive again our feminine part, the Eve rising as well, to receive again what really is, in openness, the truth. That's what we're looking for, the living truth, but also the truth of the situation that we're in. And from there, this ultimate problem recognition, we also see the solution, because we know what doesn't work and we know what does work, because there's a relativity at work there. And then the stories, the realm of reason, the stories we tell about this good and evil, this mythology, these metaphors, these fairy tales, folk stories, they will hold that space, they will contain that truth. So it will never have to go to the realm of the domain of deeds again, where it would become war.
Ego again.
Poisoning, suffering, death and destruction.
And what role does honor play in your life? And what does it mean to live with dignity in a world that often rewards betrayal?
Well, you don't have a lot of money, first of all, but that's something I don't care about, as long as I have my food and I can, you know, be somewhere with good people and work on my purpose. I haven't cared so far. This will shift soon, because I'm building on something really awesome. But honor, and that relates super strong for me to honesty, has been the guiding principle my whole life. From the age of 4 or 5, because 4 was the problem recognition, as I said, and when I was 5 I realized, like, oh, that's not true. 5, I realized the truth is what I'm looking for, because I know this shit doesn't work, so I need to know what does work. So I started envisioning and theorizing and testing that in the world, and that's what I did, well, until basically a couple of years ago. Like, all the time, that was just fully on. But when I was about 6 or 7, I think 7, I realized the importance of honesty. That if I'm not honest, people also don't respond to my real self and to my real belief system or my real, you know, thoughts and theories. So I need to be completely transparent, completely honest, completely shameless, completely fearless, and in a way innocent, because there's no personal attachment to the story. I'm just searching honestly for the truth. So I can't have any prejudice. I can't have any preference for a certain outcome. I need to really be open. So that requires total honesty. Otherwise, you're just creating this fata morgana, you know, this kind of like fake discussion that's going nowhere, you know, because you chose to wear a mask and present yourself a certain way, and you will start to live the lie. So you can't do anything else than be honest. And for me, that came in the form of like a very simple story with stealing cookies. I think I shared this last time as well, but I'm not sure if it was in there. Like, but it's like I stole some cookies. I lied about it to my parents multiple times, and that story, that lie, in my mind was a little movie in my mind, just like the truth of me eating the cookies.
That's, you know? When the cookie crumbled.
Yeah, but yeah, the lie, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I realized, okay, if I forget what really happened, I might store this lie as a truth. I might forget that this was the truth and this was the lie. Mm-hmm. And then what? Then I start to look at myself differently. I'm the guy who doesn't steal. I'm the guy who, well, actually I fucking did. You know, so
yeah, okay.
That's the moment as a kid when I realized, like, I cannot lie. I cannot do this.
Yeah, creating an illusion.
Yeah, because I won't find the truth that I'm looking for. That was the intention. Problem recognition. I want the truth. Fuck, I can't lie. Because I didn't like it. Because I got away with a lot in school. You know, when I got into fights and things, I was a very good speaker, so I got away with shit. And then I realized, like, not possible anymore.
Did you win when you fight? You fought?
Yeah.
Yeah? Are you being honest now?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. There was one time when I wasn't really a fight, you know, but it was because I backed off because I felt that the other kid was like stronger, seriously stronger. So I was like, ooh. Okay.
Well, then you were brave, at least.
Yeah, that was never a problem.
I have another challenging question for you. Do you believe true healing is possible within a sick system, or does the entire structure needs to collapse first?
It's happening at the same time. It's happening at the same time. But in order to be fully healed, the sick system cannot be there, obviously, because the sick system is a manifestation, a collective manifestation of the belief systems of the people in it. And now there's a massive friction because the majority of people does not believe in the system anymore. So the oppression starts to become more visible and harder because there's no more supporting belief. So we're now in this point of collapse of the old system. And at the meantime, the people who already saw this, like me and you, are coming together already and are already healing.
Yeah.
So there's these butterfly communities, right? Like the imaginal cells in the caterpillar, actually. They are the cells that are already part of the butterfly, and they start to multiply more and more and more because there's this vision in them, this image of the new system, the butterfly. So they start to come together and communicate and switch. They transform the ones around them and form communities, imaginal discs, they call that. Then this caterpillar starts to feel more and more lacking and sick because there's cells that are not cooperating with what he was and still is part of him. So he starts to build the cocoon. He starts to like shield himself. And this can be also seen in the people who are still stuck in these old beliefs. They become more hostile and they start to like do things to each other and become less tolerant to this caterpillar people as well and whatever. But we're just starting to focus on the ones that are open-minded because we realize like they're just not ready and maybe they never will. Maybe they are just part of this liquid soup of chaos that the caterpillar becomes, that the butterfly communities then draw everything from, that they need to rebuild something better.
Yeah, everything is one and maybe it's like collateral damage.
Yeah, I see it as the non-player characters in that sense that are like not connected to the unity within. So they are like, they lost the connection to the soul, to the witness within.
Yeah.
Conscious connection at least. It's always there, but they're just not conscious at all about it, and so there's no responsibility of their own, so they only are filled up with information from outside, all these beliefs from the experts, the media, whatever. So they're like a programmed, they're like an automatic program, a reactionary program that shows us, the ones that are in connection with the center, how that good and evil works. So they are part of the game, they are part of the lesson, but they're not necessarily part of the observing aspect of the self.
They're not aware.
That is learning.
Yeah.
So they might just pass away and make space for the new, because with them passing away, also the collective consciousness, the collective frequency changes. And now in these end times, so to say, all these polarized forces start to react on each other, and they start to neutralize each other in violent ways, unfortunately.
Yeah, we still live in a material world, so the only revolution that matters is the inner revolution.
Who said that?
Jiddu Krishnamurti.
No, not the only not the only thing that matters. It's the purpose is the inner revolution in each individual in a circle. But if we think it's the only thing that matters, why would we become a guru and talk about it? What matters as well is a space where people listen, right, to each other, where people receive this wisdom. So these spaces matter a lot, more than anything. And we do not need a Krishnamurti or any kind of guru to be there with us, as long as we understand the principle of reflection in circle, self-reflection in circle. So not meditating individually, although that also helps to find that center, but to keep that center in the dynamic of community, of a circle, and to allow the others to trigger and to feel this trigger and to feel things come up. And that's what really cleanses us and what really makes us deepen our consciousness. And that is that inner revolution ultimately. Yet I don't resonate with the word only, because it's not accurate, because there's it suggests a separation between the inner world and the outer world that is not aligned to unity consciousness. Because in unity consciousness, as I perceive, we are in the world as the world. So we accept our dream reality not as an illusion, but as a dream.
But maybe he is also saying, because if I read it back, he can also be saying, because you focus on your inner world, it materializes. What matters is the inner revolution. So the only revolution that matters is the inner revolution. So if you evolve within, automatically it will materialize outside of you as well. Maybe that's how you can look at it.
Yeah, this is the 100 monkey effect story, in a way, like of a collective consciousness switching on when someone really reaches this true unity consciousness. And I agree in a certain sense, yet the dream is still there and it will never disappear. This world is in that sense real. And Krishnamurti reached a lot of people, spread a lot of wisdom. But in no place did they switch on in this consciousness. So it's still only a story in that sense. While what I see in happening in the circles goes way beyond that, goes to transformation, through transformation. And I see that it might require, on a certain level, what you could call revolution, if censorship becomes so present that these spaces to truly connect are not allowed to be. because we need those spaces, we need that circle with each other to self-realize and not lose this foundation in the earthly reality. Yeah, we're one, we're all one inside. But here, the oneness needs to relate, and for that it needs the circle to come to this relative domain of time, matter and space. And if that space, if someone wants to take that space from us, or something that possesses someone, ideas of separation and dominance, hierarchy, pyramids that need to disconnect, the thing we spoke about, then we need to stand for those values. And the other option is pacifism, to roll over and die, basically, because the oneness, the pure oneness, is death. There is no death. Then we just become zielig in Dutch. The soul, yeah, but in Dutch the word for pitiful is like soul-ish.
Oh yeah, comes on.
And that's when we don't live.
Yeah.
That's when we, and I'm not trying to take away from Krishnamurti, because it's other times, and it's like a preparing of the collective consciousness, in which he had, of course, a great role to play.
Of course.
But this single quote is lacking in order to communicate the full truth.
Yeah, and death is only a bus stop.
Yeah, or like I see it always like dolphins swimming together, and every time they jump, it's alive, and then they land back in this oneness, and then they jump, but they keep swimming together.
Yeah.
So there's like a soul
never-ending
community, the never-ending story. Yeah, for sure.
Part 4: Building the New World. Vision, action, and responsibility. What you feed grows. So what will you plant? Ruben, what does a world based on truth, love and honor actually looks like on the ground in real time?
Yeah, I already described quite a bit of it, I think. I think one of the main characteristics that isn't very visible in our world today is a certain uniqueness of expression, completely aligned to the natural ecosystem that people live in. And in that sense, one can think, for example, about medieval Europe as opposed to medieval Japan. So the architecture is different, the stories are different, the clothes are different, the music instruments, everything is like unique to that place, yet the blueprint underneath it completely corresponds. And the oneness is at the center, and in Japan, even today, Shinto, I think is the name, right? Of the natural, it's a kind of pagan religion in the sense of nature and life are at the center. So the order of nature, to respect that order of nature and the unique people that come out of that come forth from that. And love thy neighbors, again, as Christ said, Jesus Christ, is about that, in my eyes, about respecting the differences. Because once we realize we are one inside, and only inside, but we're all connected, and there's a law of cause and effect, and there's synchronicities that awaken us and constantly communicate, we will love and respect other people, other peoples. And we will realize that we are not them in this form reality, and that we have our own culture, we have our own home, our own family, our own way of living that is aligned to the same stream that they are part of as well. So we become like one tree with different branches, and on the branches are the little leaves. That is us individuals. And then autumn comes and we fall, and then we grow back, and then but the tree is growing bigger, bigger and stronger and more beautiful all the time. And that's the tree of life.
Beautiful metaphor. Now I would like you to tell us a little bit more about your project, what you're building, who is it for, and how can others become part of it?
Mhm. Yeah, we're not yet ready to receive now, but in the background we are building, and we are building an online community in which we can practice these circle principles, in which we will provide this metaphor, this new, or actually not new at all, but like the puzzle pieces of our ancestral wisdom and mythology I have brought together, and my partner is helping me to verbalize that, and this narrative will be presented as a practical tool in order to work these circles. So the narrative, to give an example, speaks about trolls in the shadow. We all know, or most of us know, that trolls, when the light of the sun, the light of truth, hits them, they petrify, they turn to stone.
Yeah.
So troll means spell. So they are the assumed beliefs that are hiding in the shadow of our subconsciousness. And the moment truth tries to penetrate to get them, the stored emotion that belongs also to that belief projects outwards, wants to remove us from the truth. It's like the pain body, as Eckhart Tolle calls it. It tries to push the truth away.
Yeah.
So we have an outward reactionary energy, anger, or labeling the other racist, or this or that, dehumanizing the other in order not to have to take them seriously, not to have to listen to their reason.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, it doesn't matter who's reasoning as long as the reason is solid. It can be a homeless guy, it can be the king of the world. As long as the reasoning is solid, if you just listen to the reasoning, you will see if it's flawed or not. Draw the shield of honesty and the sword of reason, and just don't assume anything, don't believe anyone, don't believe anything, just go for knowledge. And in that space, trolls can come up, but if we know what they are, and that the real growth is in like shifting to assist that light to shine on these emotions, and then usually underneath the anger is sadness.
Okay.
We cry and we realize we assumed something. Usually there's a memory attached to it. We realize how our father did something to us or whatever. Usually it's our parents. And then we let go of it. In the process we let go of it. And we petrified this troll by the light of truth in the presence of others, which brings it to the relative dimension, because there's not one only, but there's multiple points of view of the oneness. So we brought it to the relative dimension of time, space and matter. We embodied it. And this troll becomes the stepping stone to a higher consciousness, to a deeper consciousness. A lesson written in stone that we will never forget, not in this life. And that's one of those metaphors, the main one, I would say.
Yeah, I think about The Hobbit.
Yeah, but it provides us with a narrative that is in itself non-triggering, that we can remind ourselves of in the moment it comes up in the circle. We can assist each other with that language. Mm-hmm. So this is what we're building, in essence. Of course, there's a lot more involved. Right now I have an Instagram account which is not really active. It's called Return to the Circle, with underscores between every word, so return. I
will put the link underneath this video.
Cool.
So we can start growing it for you.
Yeah, there's not much happening right now, but it is me saying a bunch of stuff from the past. I want to change the whole thing, actually, but this will be me. And the name will stay, and more will come at a certain point.
Of course, yeah. And we cannot all be like me on the internet, constantly making content, etc. We all have our role to play, and I love to help you sort of painting it on the internet for you, your story and your voice that you already really possess. Yeah,
that's very nice of you.
You're welcome, brother.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure. What is your message to those who feel hopeless or lost? Those who want to help build something better but don't know where to start?
Yeah, very common very recognizable theme. What I experienced in that is that the vision can be so big and so beautiful, yet very far from where we are. And to accept that we need to learn to walk again, like a kind of beginner's mindset, like me with my Instagram, for example, or whatever. So this is where you stand, this is where you are. Just see your situation super factual. Stop focusing on the people who judge you, on the people who put up a wall, who don't want to hear the message, who don't want to receive you, and start connecting to the people who are also on the same mission in their own way, and form a circle. Start sharing with each other, start opening up, start practicing these principles, and you will see that with every moment that you receive some wisdom from someone you thought didn't even possess that wisdom, and believe me, people do. People have a lot of wisdom, all people. It will give you hope. It will make you realize, like, whoa, these are the same themes that I'm busy with. These are the same things, and this guy verbalizes it completely differently, and it gives me a different angle, contrast, and more clarity on the topic. And it gives hope to experience. That's the key word, experience. You can't think your way out by yourself. You have to connect to other people to experience that connection, because our traumas also come from the relationship with other people. So we also heal it by experiencing trust and faith in the connection with other people. And like this, we start to generate a sort of natural momentum. The fire is like sparked, and that flame, kindle the flame, undo the spell. That's what I'm always saying. And then you will notice that you get more passionate, that you will get more excited about life again. And just forget about the naysayers, because the naysayers, they follow external authority. So the only moment that they will recognize you, even if they're your mother, is the moment where the world, or at least a little world, recognizes you. So let it go, just let it go. And focus on what does work. That's the advice I would give. And work out and eat healthy and really look into that kind of stuff, because the body is the temple and it does matter a lot.
Definitely.
Like I've searched for a long time. Oh, why does my back hurt? And why? Oh, what's behind it? What kind of emotional blockages? No, man, I'm just sitting on my ass too much. It's very simple. Like I need to move. This body needs to run. This body, it's
Take
like it can be that simple.
Yeah. Very recognizable.
Yeah. Sitting in circle too much.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is an interesting question. If power tends to corrupt, how do you ensure that your new world doesn't just become the next empire with a better PR?
Well,
thank you.
That was already answered in a way, but I'll just repeat it because the information is quite condensed that I give, I guess. So it's good that all these questions come. The difference is an empire, an oppressive kind of system, is based on these forms of external authority. People are trained through a system that is based on some form of money and credit, some kind of top-down reward system, and punishment on the other side. And this is connected to law, as in not the natural law, but this bureaucracy that will get worse and worse and worse and worse, and limit people more and more and more and more, because more control. This control freak just wants to regulate more social credit systems, like all this regulation, until life can't flow anymore in that system, and then it starts to find a way out, and that's the collapse of that system. And what I'm talking about is the return to the circle of life itself, in that sense, the circle of people, where we create this cultural narrative that forms this path of initiation that raises our children, that raises the future to a level of consciousness where we accept the self-reflection in any moment, the responsibility for our own world. So there is no way of controlling people who are like that in a top-down fashion, because they know themselves, they know the order of nature. They know the law of cause and effect, and they know what their body needs to be healthy, happy and strong. And they know who they are in a cultural way and a local ecosystem identity in that sense as well. You know, so they basically think global, act local in that way. Bit of a shitty term in this context, in the sense of like, doesn't sound as beautiful, but there's truth in it, and those people will just start acting locally. Their own children, their own friends, their own garden, they'll start growing food, they'll start, and this is the difference between these systems. Like, what I'm describing is an eternal civilization based in the mythology and local self-sustainability. So the whole system strives to create small-scale self-sustainability everywhere. Instead of the opposite thing what the pyramid does, it sucks everything up.
Yeah,
and it
so
creates bigger and bigger centralized structures that make people locally dependent on far away. Globalism, right? Like, food is produced in Africa, so now you can't say anything anymore, or else we cut the food off, you know? Yeah. No, this is communism in Russia, for example, in the Soviet Union ended because people had their dachas, they had their gardens where they grew their own food, and there were millions of them. Still in Russia today, more than 80% of the food is grown by people privately. So you can't starve them from the system. This is very different in Holland and England and these kind of totalitarian countries.
There's even laws
basically
now that it makes it illegal to grow your own food in England and also
America,
in America.
Yeah, some places, yes. This is what the system does, and it distracts people with all these fake values, you know, of like, oh, I'm an IT person, I'm a this, I'm a that. It will all be replaced anyway by AI and robots and whatever they're doing, and immigrants, I guess. But this like it's an illusion of like stability. The real stability will be in life skills locally. The masculine needs to flow as well. You know, we need to like have strong meetings like on the streets, like places that don't cost money, where people can come together in the park and picnic and play chess and do sports and, you know, do all these things where they connect with the local community, live in a way that makes them healthy, happy and strong, and share the same cultural narrative, share the same traditions. This binds the community, the circles, the sense of belonging, the brotherhood is the force that keeps civilization together and that prevents that we go into this harshness.
Part 5, the return. The true rebellion is remembrance. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the old one obsolete. Ruben, what is the one thing you wish everyone remembered about who they truly are?
The essence of the oneness within, the mystery at the core, the fact that will always be a mystery. It's like what some people say, right? Like that science does, modern science, which is not real pure science again because it's in service of the money, of course, that they basically say, give me one miracle and I'll explain the rest. Right? The Big Bang theory, like, yeah, okay, Big Bang doesn't explain anything. It's like, okay, why wouldn't God just create a Big Bang? Why wouldn't it doesn't explain anything. It's just a narrative that just is like smoke and mirrors in order to act like it was an act of randomness. So I would say the main thing is to realize that there is no randomness, that everything happens for a reason. And then they will start to allow the synchronicities of their life to tell them the story that will awaken them. Because when we assume that randomness exists and that everything is like just a coincidence, not as in two things coinciding, but just as in like for no reason, then there's already a certain mindset that doesn't take responsibility for its reality. It's a filter. It's like things are not connected then. Like, oh, I walked out of my door, I went against a certain feeling, I actually didn't feel like that, but I forced myself to do it anyway, and then I bumped my head and now I'm bleeding. They're just like, oh, I bumped my head, I'm bleeding, for no reason. No, it's because you were in this forced state of mind and you acted from a place that wasn't aligned, and now you're getting the feedback. So there's a cause and effect at work.
It's feedback. Yeah.
And in that sense, we need to acknowledge the law of cause and effect. Yeah, everything happens for a reason. There is no such thing as things happening for no reason.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, brother.
You're welcome.
You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. Ruben, thank you. Not just for what you said, but for what you're doing. In a world obsessed with deconstruction, builders like you are very rare.
Thanks for recognizing. Likewise, bro. Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks, man.
This conversation wasn't just about resisting the system, it was a reminder that resistance alone is not enough. We must remember what we are here to restore: love, honor, and sacred responsibility. You are not powerless, you are not alone. This is Tribe Radio, and where the system ends, your sovereignty begins. Now the only question remains: what kind of world will you help build? Sincerely yours, Robin, just like the bird. Power to the people!
Nice one, man. Dit was echt wel informatie, man. Ik ben hier heel blij mee. Als je dit ziet als beginner, zeg maar, dan ga je nooit meer hetzelfde naar dingen kijken.
Nee, zeker niet.
Dus dat is het doel, toch?